Welcome to the Succeeding Over All Roadblocks Lifecast, a show about self-discovery and vibrating higher in every area of your life. Each week, I'll have conversations with some of my favorite people who are soaring over life's challenges. They'll share their struggles, but more importantly, the lessons they've learned along the way. I'm your host, Keisha Whitaker, entrepreneur and transformational speaker. Let's get ready to soar. This week, I'm highlighting a woman whose journey in public service is not only inspiring, but can empower others seeking to make a difference as an advocate or running for office. Most know Verlina Reynolds Jackson as an Assemblywoman for New Jersey's 15th Legislative District in Trenton, but I simply know her as V. Her career as a social worker, coupled with a commitment to public service, led her to the elected position of East Ward Councilwoman and Council Vice President, where she legislated laws for the city of Trenton. Verlina proudly served 7.5 years on city council and as chair of the Mercer County Democratic Party before being elected to fill her district's vacant New Jersey Assembly seat. Verlina currently serves as the Deputy Majority Leader and Vice Chairwoman of the Assembly Consumer Affairs Committee. She is a member of the Assembly Budget Committee, the Assembly Commerce and Economic Development Committee, the Joint Committee on Public Schools, and the Joint Committee on Economic Justice and Equal Employment. Please help me welcome the one and only Assemblywoman, Verlina Reynolds Jackson. Hey, Verlina.
Hey, sweetheart. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for being on. I really appreciate you joining me.
No problem. No problem. You know, I love you and I appreciate everything that you do. The work is awesome. And, you know, we come from a space where, you know, we uplift each other. And I'm just so super duper proud of you and your podcast, bringing this to life. I've heard some of the shows and it is amazing and transforming. So thank you for inviting me into this space.
Thank you so much, sis. And, you know, we go back a long way. And, you know, of course, we are members of the illustrious Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, and we're also line sisters. So, you know, meeting you has been definitely a life-changing experience along with my other line sisters. And we crossed in spring of 2004. The Trenton Alumni Chapter in Trenton, New Jersey. So in one of my many stops, I had an opportunity to pledge there and build some amazing relationships with all of my line sisters. And I just want to shout them out. Let me shout out Adrian, Marilyn, Missy, Yvonne, rest in peace, Barbara, Sharon, Taisha, Charlene, Shantae, and Connie. Those are some ladies that have really been a major, major part of my life. So a very defining part of my life as well. So thank you for just being here. Of course, I want to shout you out and anything I could do to help you promote what you're doing and all the great work you're doing up there as an Assemblywoman. I definitely want to make sure the world knows about it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. You know, we talk about 16 years and, you know, even when we share our stories, like when we first met, I was not interested in politics whatsoever. And I didn't know until recently that you even worked in the assembly office, majority office. And I was like, what? So she knows some of these people that I work with. And, you know, she knows the legislature. She knows the behind the scenes. She knows, you know, all of this great stuff. So I'm like, you know, okay, this is another person that I can definitely say this is on my speed dial list that I can call and ask for advice and really help me in my messaging. So thank you for, you know, working in that space. And this is your career. This is what you do. And so it's really comforting to know that I can talk to you and be open and vulnerable and ask for help from someone that I know I trust, that's not out to hurt me or harm me, but only to support me and lift me up. So, you know, thank you to you for being so bold. This is just amazing, amazing, amazing.
Thank you. What I tell people all the time is, as a communicator, it's our job to kind of be the wall. When
Mhm.
people come to you and talk to you, and even working in that space in communications, worked for the legislature for about a year in Jersey, and being on that state level it was definitely something to see. It was wild. I just could say it was
Mhm.
never it was never a dull moment there. But I look back on it and I learned so much in that short period of time, and just how to handle situations better, how to handle people better. It was crazy. I'm just gonna be honest. It was crazy. And
Yeah.
so, having the support of my line sisters who've been there, particularly like Missy and Barbara, who had been kind of around the scene for a minute by then,
Oh,
you know, just having their support meant a lot. And now seeing you, years later get involved. Like I said, I had no idea that you were interested in politics, or if this was something that you were going to even get involved in. So let's jump into the story of how you
yeah.
first decided to do this.
I mean, I just think about, who I am. I grew up on Wilkinson Place, which is literally 2 blocks from the State House, was a frequent visitor of the State Museum and the planetarium, but never knew about Lobby Row, never knew about the State House. Now, I think we all have the phase where we go to the State House and do the tours, but it's not something that I personally remember doing. It wasn't a personal activity that we did. I just know we went to the planetarium, you look at the stars, you go to the museum because they had kids stuff, and that was it. And so fast forward now, it's just to know how laws are made and how you can advocate for people and to be in this role is just amazing. I grew up as part of the YWCA, whose mission is to eliminate racism and empower women. And to me, that is really the fabric of who I am. This is all I know, is to really stand up and advocate for social justice and civil rights and women's rights. That's just that, again, that's just who I am. That's what I want to do. I have 2 older brothers. I have an older brother, we're about 10 years apart, and another brother that's a year apart, and they're both disabled. My older brother, Bruce, he was, when we were younger, I was the little big sister. I was, always trying to make sure that nobody bullied him or picked on him. Fast forward now, he's 6'5" and over 200 pounds, and he's able to take care of himself. But at the time, that was my little brother, and that was my brother. I had to make sure that I protected him at all costs. And I wanted to make sure, that we did that as brother and sister, and nobody was going to pick on him. He went to school on the little bus. And so that was always, a question. Why do you go to that school? Why do you take that bus? And, we just always, there was always an issue. But, again, now he is active in the community. He keeps a job, which is amazing. And then I think about my work as I move forward. I went to Trenton State College. I majored in sociology. I was a social worker for a very long time. And even in that space, I was helping people who were homeless, who were facing eviction, domestic violence. And my job was to make sure that I navigated those resources to get people help. And I did that for over a decade. And I remember when I first got there, I didn't know that there was a program for single people with no children, and that the state was able to provide resources for job development, job training, bus tickets, food, all of these things. I feel like I was living a almost sheltered life because we weren't rich, we were poor, but everybody worked. And so there are different situations for everybody. And in this social work space, I always felt like this is where I wanted to be able to advocate for those less fortunate until they're able to get on their feet. And I feel like that's where government definitely plays a role. And learning so much now about housing and education and jobs and how places are picked essentially depends on who's at the table. It has a profound impact on the way that I make decisions. And so I look at even getting involved when I first became a Delta, and God bless Sharon Caldwell. We went to Delta Days at the nation's capital. And I remember like going on Capitol Hill. I had never been to Capitol Hill. And I remember talking about our agenda and the things that we were advocating for in our community. And I remember, going to different legislative offices. Again, this was like, I was just on fire when I left there. I felt like this is, this is what we're supposed to be doing. People don't know what's happening in Trenton. People don't know that we haven't had any new housing projects, or they don't know we need job development. They don't know we need companies to hire people for these jobs. We want a decent wage. And I just remember coming back and I was like, all right, so I had graduated college. I was living my best life. And I was like, all right, so now what are you going to do? And I went to look for like different boards that I could join. And my first board I joined was the zoning board. And then my brother, Bruce, had some problems with his family. Now he has 6 boys. And so my mom took the 2 older ones and I took the 4 younger ones. Mind you, I was single. I was like, so I went from instant single, living your best life, to a single parent with 4 kids. The baby was 3. There was a 5, 6, and 7-year-old. And it was, my world was just turned upside down. And part of the issue, the 5-year-old was in kindergarten. So you had kindergarten, first, and second grade. And I went to, of course, being the best auntie, going to back to school night. I got these kids, we got to go to back to school night. And I met a teacher and she cried. She was like, I don't know how this young boy got here to the second grade and he can't read, he can't write, he doesn't know his alphabet, he doesn't know numbers 1 through 10. There's no way he should be in the second grade. So that was part of the first huge hurdle. And it wasn't just him, it was my other 2 nephews as well. So all 3 of them had special needs. So one day I was on the bus stop waiting for the bus. My car had just broke. I had the 3-year-old with me and I was going to pick up the kids from the after school program where they were getting tutoring. And my nephew called, he was saying, Auntie, I can't get home. I'm being bullied. And I was, you think about it, your loved one and they're calling you and you're like, okay, let me see what I can do. I had to tell this story over 10, 20 times about, I'm trying to get my nephew home. I had to keep repeating the situation over and over and over again. And I was devastated. And it wasn't that it was a far walk that he had to go. It was the fact that I felt like I was hopeless and I didn't know how to get him home. And this wasn't the first time. Like, he called me for like a week and we tried to resolve this problem. So long story short, we resolved the issue. We were able to get him home. We got some crossing guards. We found out who the boys were. But in the meantime, in my mind, I'm like, listen, if this is happening to me, this is happening to someone else. I just so happened to know a Delta who was a teacher at the school, who had some connections with the principal. And we were able to do some strategic planning to get this bully some help as well, and to be able to make a safe corridor for kids to get home. But everybody doesn't have those type of resources and connections. So I started reaching out to my local officials, my local council person, and I wrote letters, I called, and it was silent. So I decided I was going to go to a council meeting, and I was going to introduce myself and ask them, hey, did you get this letter? And we should try to work on safe corridors for kids to get back and forth home from school. He refused to shake my hand. He didn't acknowledge my letters, and he just really blew me off. And so I was livid because I'm a professional woman. I am educated. I work in this space, and I felt so disrespected. And I said, if he does this to me, I can't imagine how he's treating other people who only make 1 phone call or 2 phone calls. But I had made over 20 phone calls, and I have written so many letters that I was determined that I was going to people were going to get better access to services, and I was going to be their advocate. So it was at that point that I decided I was going to run. He had been in office for over 20 years or 4 terms. I think he was there. I think he was there for like 4 terms. And I was like, it's not a matter of winning or losing. It's about providing access to resources that people need. And whether you're a resident, a taxpayer, a renter, a homeowner, the fact that you come to the city of Trenton, you're a customer, and we should be providing the utmost professionalism and services to you. And so I just said, enough is enough. And I decided I was going to run. And it was interesting. I met a lot of people on my journey who encouraged me to, continue to do the work. And I remember starting a community group due to taxes, financial strains that the city was having. They'd stop having community meetings in the hardest hit part of the city. And, there were people that still wanted to meet. And so I'm out here advocating. We were able to open back up the building, the community center. We were able to have the community police resource officer attend the meetings, hear the complaints from the residents, and and build that relationship. I feel like we're in the moment now where we talk about reinvesting or reinventing our law enforcement departments. Some areas have been doing this for a long time, but it definitely goes back to resources and making sure we have the funding available. And so I just want to say a big shout out to our Villa Park Association, our Euclid Avenue and Tioga Street neighborhood watch programs, all the neighborhood watch programs that do so much for the community. And, we're in this space now of giving. They do a lot, and we ask that law enforcement help out and give back. And so here we have that. We have a great connection with our prosecutor office, who participates in a lot of our give back community, Thanksgiving, school supplies. We're on the holiday season. And so people know who these community resource officers are. They know who the police director is because she's out there and she's making herself available. And so, it is very encouraging to know that, my work has always started at the grassroots level. And it was always and still is about providing access and advocating for people's needs. That's all I ever wanted to do. And in this space, I just feel like I do that each and every day.
Your story is amazing. Tell me about your journey as far as serving on boards and how you first got started to where you are today.
So, as I said, when I came back from Delta Days at the nation's capital, I learned so much. And I just began to do some research about boards and commissions in my area. So I found, local nonprofits like Habitat for Humanity. I found our library board. And I just began to look for openings. Who had an opening? And all of this stuff was public information. It's on the website. And they had a rent stabilization board. There was a alcohol beverage control board, ABC board. They had the planning board. They had the zoning board. And so I was looking for an opportunity. There was a vacancy, and I wrote a letter, and I applied. And I said, I'm interested. And I think at the time I had a real estate license. I'm almost positive I had one. So I'm an active learner. I love learning. I take a class for everything. I wanted to be, I refinanced my house. This lady came out, she charged me $400 and she was only here for about 15 minutes. And after we were done, I was like, so how'd you get this job? I need to know. And so she told me, she was like, I'm a notary public and, I do these signings. I did some research. I took a class. I started a small business and it was Reliable Agents LLC. For about maybe 10 years or so. I probably actively did it for maybe 2 or 3, but that was one space. So even after I bought my house, I felt the same need to get a license. I found the class, I took it, sat for the state exam, boom, I had a real estate license. I met some people along the way, and you did it. You had your guest was on, who was a part of Prime America. I also had a insurance license. I was going to get my securities license, but life had changed. And then while I was on council, I decided that I wanted to get a finance license. And so again, just my pursuit of trying to just to be active in some kind of way, whatever my purpose and passion was. And so with the finance license, though, that helped me do some other things that was absolutely amazing knowing about government and how it runs, all the departments. When you talk about trafficking, when you talk about school boards, again, trying to be active in my community opened up so many doors. And so people ask me all the time, how did you get started? I would just say, what's your passion? Know what you like and what you don't like, and try to pursue that and see if there's a board that you can join to be able to advocate for policies that help your field or your industry. And that's how I got started, just being nosy. And I remember sitting in the parking lot one day, and Missy called and she asked me, well, what are you doing? I said, oh, I'm about to go to this meeting. Now, I'm not on the board. I'm just going to see what this board is like. And so she's like, what are you doing that for? And I said, I just want to see what happens at these meetings. And, you get a chance to see people, your elected officials, or these people that have been appointed to boards, and decision-making process and how they happen. I feel like everybody should volunteer and be a part of a board. A lot of boards are volunteer and they're not paid, but it definitely makes you feel like you're part of the process and your voice is being heard.
So you got on a couple boards, and I think that's the perfect entree in, because you learn, like you said, the inner workings of the city, how things are done, and then that gives you a greater context. So after you did the boards, what made you decide to run for city council?
It was just, I would go to community meetings and, your neighborhood watch program. There were about 4 in my area. They met on different days of the week. So I was able to participate in a lot of them, and he was never there. So it's like, again, I'm there as a citizen, just like they are. But, I'm going to take these notes down. I'm going to go back. I'm going to talk with the police department, and we're going to see how we can resolve them. Some issues were simple. Some were just the light in their, the light post, the light lamp was out. And that's a simple fix. You don't have to be an elected official. You write the code down, you put the street down, and, the closest cross intersection, and they come out and they fix it. Like, that's not hard. But it was just things like that, kind of helped build up the community. They wanted to do a back to school drive. I have some friends that are on the fire department. I said, I need 50 book bags. Will you be able to help? And again, we were able to give out 50 book bags. You got people that came out from the community that wanted to do hot dogs and hamburgers. And now you have a community day where now they get a chance to interact with the local fire department and the prosecutor office. They also donated to be able to see that these people are real and they look like me. And so maybe one day I'm going to be the fire chief, or I'm going to be the fire director, or I'm going to be the state prosecutor. These are the opportunities that we try to be able to connect people with and really build a stronger community, all based on volunteerism.
I'm just in awe of how you just jumped in and did it, because to know you in 2004 and to see you just say, you know what, I'm jumping in, I'm taking the initiative on all of these things. So what was it like to run for office that first time? Like, what was your experience like?
Oh my God. So I went to church New Year's Eve. So you have to file your paperwork, everything. I believe it's like early January. So New Year's Eve, I went to church, and I remember just praying about it. I talked to my pastor about it. I said, listen, I'm thinking about running for council. And he's asked me, he's like, are you on social media? Are you on Facebook? I was like, no, I hate that stuff. And so he's like, well, you need to get used to it, because somebody else would determine what you look like. So you need to. And I said, you know what, I'm going to pray about it. I prayed, and I just felt like God brought me on this path. I feel like this was, again, nothing that I could have ever imagined. It was not a part of my vision, what my world would look like, but I've always been an advocate. And so I said, Lord, if this is the path that you want me to go down, I shall not say no, and I will do it, and I will do it well. And so, this is, politics, public service, advocacy. It's hard. It's hard. It's tough when you're fighting for people, basic human rights. And I knew that this was, win or lose, this was about advocating for the people. And so winning was the bonus, but making sure people knew who their elected official, who they are and what they're supposed to be doing, I thought was more important. And so, people believed in me, they believed in that. And here I am.
And you spent 8 years on the city council, including serving as the city council vice president for
Right.
4 years. So, I mean, your leadership and the support that you've had around you, I've seen you be very active and very vocal in the community, whether you're, going on runs or whether you bring people along with you. Like you're this the kind of person that you're always pulling people up with you.
Try, I just think about the opportunities that were given to me, and I try to make sure I bring along people with me in this space. And there's so much space out here for everybody. And I'm just that compromising person. But when I was on the board, I tell you, it's council, it was very, very difficult. We're dealing with a city budget that starts off in the red. I told you I got certified as a municipal finance officer. That opened my eyes up to budgeting, how decisions are made, how money is spent, where state government comes in. And we don't do this, the capital city, its due diligence at all. And that has been the fight, I would say, for me, not just this 10 years that I've been in this space, but I see why it's so hard. And, we talked a little bit about it, but it's about votes, right? It's about people who vote to put their elected officials in. It's about holding them accountable. It's about making sure what you want for your town is heard. And it's multifaceted. It's complex. And you just have to make sure that you keep voters engaged. So when they say all politics start off local, it definitely does. And every single vote counts. And so you just got to find your space, and love to be in it, because it's hard. It's very, very hard.
So after doing the city, what made you want to step up and go towards the state legislature?
So at that time, I was the vice president of the Mercer County Democrats, and I was active in my party. And I remember talking to some folks about leadership, and I wanted to do more. We had just won our. Unfortunately, the chairman passed away, Rich McCullen, very highly respected man who had been in politics for decades, was a true leader in our party. Upon his passing, I became the chair of the county party. Again, another very high level leadership role. And I did essentially work to help Mercer County win our election for our governor, Murphy. And all of our slates, I think we won. I know we did, from the governor to the state to the county level. We won all of our seats. And so again, I think as the chairwoman for the party, that was a huge victory, something that I had never done before. I had to work with all of our towns, all of our state representatives as well. It was, again, another opportunity just to see how this world, this politics, how does this world work? And I just remember being open. You got to be open. You got to be able to make decisions and work with people. And I think because of my skills from that 7.5 years on city council, you learn how to work with different people in different spaces. And everything, you may not agree, but we can respectfully disagree. And so from that, our governor won. So our Assemblywoman, Moyo, went to go be the state treasurer, which allowed for a vacancy for the assembly. And so at that time, I said, you know what, here's an opportunity to once again serve. And I put my name in the hat and was successful at receiving my party's nomination for the assembly. And, it's just amazing. This is the same seat that our Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman held for so many years. And you look at the legacy and all of the social justice and the work that she's done. I feel like, she's passing the torch on, and we work together now from the federal level and the state level. So
shout out to Bonnie. Shout out to Bonnie. I love me some
yes,
Bonnie. She was there when I
yes.
was there. And so, yeah, she was one of the leading voices in the state. She was, I think at that time, she may have been chair of the state Democratic Party. So
She was, I think
Bonnie,
she was, and she might have been even I think the minority leader at the time too.
mhm,
The majority leader at the time as well.
Congresswoman Bonnie Watson Coleman now. So
Yes.
yeah. So you were saying about stepping into that role of becoming an assemblywoman.
And just amazing, Senator Turner, who's been there for a very long time as well. I remember actually when I got on council going to Senator Turner saying, listen, how do you navigate these difficult spaces? And in true Turner style, she said, you are the professional and you have to keep that in mind at all times. And I think also like Michelle Obama, when they go low, you go high. It takes a lot of practice. Nobody's perfect at it, but I can definitely say through experience, you can't have an argument by yourself. And so, you stand for what you stand for, and people have to just have to value your decision when you make it, whether they agree or disagree with it. So, we have a great Fighting 15th team. Shout out to my running mate, also Assemblyman Varelli, who when Reed left the assembly because he won being the mayor of Trenton, became a vacancy. And so there we go again. And welcome aboard to Assemblyman Varelli, who is an outstanding partner to work with in the legislature as well.
And here's the other thing you said too, is dealing with people and the challenges that go with that. But at the same time, you're working, putting up, results on the board to show your work and to show what you've been able to accomplish. And so I think the work also speaks for you when you're out there on the front lines. People have to respect that. The work speaks for itself. And I think that's why you are now the deputy majority leader.
I think too, it's like you have to be able to, chaos can consume you. It could be a distraction away from the goals. And I only speak from experience, though. You really have to stay focused on the agenda and what are you trying to achieve, because you can get sidelined, man, so simply off of some stuff that you're like, what does that have to do with me and this bill and this item that we're working on right now? Because all of this other stuff is just chaos. And so, the newspapers have a great job at doing that. I don't think they do enough about uplifting us. And so I try to be mindful and tell people, we shouldn't be waiting for somebody else to celebrate us. We have to celebrate ourselves in the moment. And so I try to do that through my newsletter, making sure I show our young people who's coming up in this space, who are very vocal, very active, and want to be a part of the solution. And so we have to be mindful and strategic about making sure they are inclusive into what we do each and every day.
Well, let me double back before we go. I'm going to talk about that, but I want to double back where you talked
Mm-hmm.
about, the challenges and moving up. And, that was so evident in this most recent election with Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, and just to see what Kamala had to endure and to still be able to continue rising and rising and rising above that. And now is the first African-American, first Indian-American vice president elect woman. It's so exciting to see. And I was telling some friends of mine, that it's not really lost on me, the people who have come before her to help her get to where
Mm-hmm.
she is. But at the same time, I understand the significance and the impact of it. It's amazing. But at the same time, I also feel like this was supposed to happen. Like, this is normal. This is natural. Like, why weren't we supposed to have a woman, at the highest levels of government? Other countries
Mm-hmm.
have
Mm-hmm.
women that are presidents. And so it's been such a taxing experience for, I think, Black women in general, but women and Black women. But to see her where she is now, it never dawned on me that, oh, this is just some unbelievable feat, even though,
Right.
technically it is. But I grew up in a world where I never was told that I couldn't do what boys could do. I always
Right.
believed that I could do whatever they could do,
Right.
in the sense of, using my mind and working hard and getting the opportunities. So, shout out to Kamala for sure for that. you know,
Absolutely.
she AKA, we let the AKAs have, we'll let them have some fun. But yeah, I'm very, very proud of our Divine Nine sister who's going to represent us well.
Amazing, right? And you look at, even, as we talk about voter engagement and staying connected, look at how all the Divine Nine came together. And I'm reading this book, and I think I told you before, Tiffany Cross's book, Say It Louder, where she talks about Black women have always been there. It's the media that hasn't put us out in the forefront. But I think we're in this space now where we're not asking to. You have women journalists, you have women that are starting their own broadcasting, their own newspapers. They're making sure that our voices are out there, again, no longer waiting for someone else to celebrate us. We're doing it ourselves, and we're doing it boldly. And so I shout out to VP MVP, right? Shout out to her, Madam Vice President. She's doing amazing things, and we're going to continue to support her and make sure that she continues to support our agenda. This is not over. It's just another cycle. We just have to make sure, we stay actively engaged in our communities, that we, when we talk about the needs of the community, it's not always a beat 'em up situation, but we want to be able to celebrate the achievements as well. And so, we look at this was a long, long, long fight. So we want to take a breath. We want to celebrate, but we also want to be strategic and plan how we're going to do the next 6 months, because in somebody's state, in somebody's town, they're going to have another fire election. They're going to have another school board election. They're going to have another town council election, another mayor election, state legislature. We're all up, governor elections. And so it's not over. And that's the good thing. So, when you think about the longevity of election cycles, they start, they end, and then it's start all over again. So, I am super, super proud to be able to see a woman of color. I saw one of those images of all the vice presidents in the past, and then you see this woman, up there as the first. And as she says, for many more to come. We broke the ceiling on this one, and we look for more women to step up and be vocal about it.
Yeah, absolutely. And this is my thing. Like, Black women are going to save the world. Point blank and period. Shout out to Stacey Abrams. Shout
Oh,
out,
yes.
people who really pulled through for this election, and just women, Black women that stepped up. We are the number one voting bloc in this country. We always show up. We always show out. We always bring a team with us to vote. And so we have to really start paying attention to not just how much we vote, but who we push out there. Like, let's start preparing. Let's start getting
Absolutely.
women like yourself, people who are really serious about making a change in our community, that have a heart for service, that want to get out and really make a difference. And so we have to really start rallying and finding those diamonds in the rough within our own community to put
Right.
out there, because that's where we're going to see a major change. When you start changing the face of politics, like Kamala just did, when you start changing the face of who's representing people and their interest, and you see that that's an agenda that is not just limited to Black women, but is limited to all women, to families, to the growth of communities, then you start seeing some major change, particularly on the local level. So I'm there with you on that. So let's jump back to you. And we were talking about something that you did that I was loving it. I saw the article that you have students who will now be a part of serving on the school board. And,
Oh,
well,
yes.
eventually it just passed committee, but hopefully that will be a bill that passes, and that students will be able to serve on the school board to have their voices heard in a way that people typically don't listen to the students.
Right. So this is awesome. I mean, this is really, you talk about community organizing. So I am an Upward Bound graduate. And so I have an intern in my office, and shout out to Casey Fortson, who's interning in my office. And he started, a curious teenager. I had an opportunity. He came in, and so he started going to his local school board meetings, and he came back and he said, Ms. Jackson, they don't have any student reps up there. They ask for our input, but, we don't have a seat at the table. And I told him, I said, well, Casey, this is how laws get made. And I think you have an excellent idea. And so we put it to writing and we said, this is what we're looking for, to have a student participant on all school boards. And so I know that the last committee meeting, we got some input from charter schools that wanted to participate as well. And so we had to amend the bill to include that. Casey came, he testified, he told his story. He was also our student of the year for the New Jersey Black Legislative Caucus. This is just amazing to hear how students want to participate, but this is actionable, and not just for his school district, but throughout the whole state of New Jersey. And how amazing is that? And so I think, now he's formed another group of students that are actively participating in the high school. And I told him recently, I said, Casey, I'm working on my 2021 calendar. Make sure you send me your calendar so that we can be inclusive. And, if there's anything else, we can be supportive to you as well. And I think that's how it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be in a partnership. There's no one better than the other. There's no I in team. And so in trying to make sure we have space for our youth, this is a great example of how to do that.
Awesome. Awesome. And, I look at you like you walk it like you talk it. And you have really been a sponsor on hundreds of bills just in the year 2021 session alone. And a lot of them were based around healthcare, particularly for women's access and pregnant women having medical coverage, prison reentry, reducing barriers to reentry into society, reinstating people who come back to have privileges like jury duty, things of that nature, reparations. Now we can talk reparations. I need a whole show about reparations because I have friends that we have these in-depth conversations about how to really hold this nation accountable for the atrocities of slavery. But that's another talk for another day. And then, of course, you talk about discrimination against senior citizens. You do a lot just across the board in terms of making sure that there are laws, that there are things on the books that protect people. And so how does that come to you? Do people, is it stuff that you notice? Is it that people come to you with these things, or how does this stuff come about?
It is. It's really, it's really me being active in the community. I work with various types of organizations. Everybody has a mission statement. Everybody has, their goals and objectives. And we just try to make sure that, again, holding me accountable to the issues that are important to you. And so, in this space, unfortunately, in the climate that we're in the United States, I remember the voter intimidation bill. It was about not having law enforcement in polling locations. And you just think about it, it's like, oh yeah, that's clearly voter intimidation. But it was so many challenges and obstacles starting back in June. And it hasn't been signed into law yet. But this is one that I am very passionate about because, again, when we think about going to the polls, when you think about telling your story of why it's important, and if you take someone with you, whether it's a niece, a nephew, or mentor or mentee, you think about telling that story. And I ask people all the time, nobody ever talks about the law enforcement being in the room. And what is the purpose of that? That's clearly voter intimidation. You want to say, oh no, are they going to look for me? Do I have warrants or am I going to be arrested for whatever reason? That's not the place for that. And I'm not saying that law enforcement shouldn't have an opportunity to do its job, but that's on the outside of those doors, not on the inside. When I come in, it should be barrier free. And I left out 1 year, I was a poll worker. And that's another way of getting involved to see how the whole process works. And in that, I didn't realize that there are so many law enforcement officers that are needed in protecting the ballots, right? So I'm like, law enforcement came to me and we talked about it and said, did you know that, we transport those ballots? Are we going to be in violation now? And I said, you know what? Let's rework this. There is a space to make sure that the ballots are protected, but there is zero space in the polling places. And so we just have to be mindful about removing barriers or obstacles that stop people from accessing their civil rights. This is their rights to be able to do that. And so, I'm just very mindful. And that was because somebody came to me and talked about it and said, you know what, we have to do something. And we don't make this up. Bills come from all over the place. And so I rely very heavily on constituent services.
And you just brought up the key word I want to talk about, which is accountability. Holding our elected officials accountable, particularly like in your case, you saw that the city council person was not doing their job. You stepped up and ran. So in those cases where people don't have the ability to run for office, but do see the need for accountability, in your opinion, what are some ways that people can begin to hold no matter where they live, no matter where they are, how could they begin to start holding their elected officials accountable?
I think, I learned from one group, Moms Demand Action. They had a tutorial and they said, how many people have their elected officials number in their phones? How do you contact them or email addresses? So if a situation arises and you need action, it should be at your fingertips. I know I have a bad habit. My phone is stuck to me all the time. And I said, you know what? That is something. That's an actionable item that you can do right away to be able to know who they are. How can I get you a message, whether it's by phone or email? And it starts there. That's to me is the first step. And then finding out, again, a board that you want to join, or a community group, or maybe you just want to do a book bag drive or feed the homeless, or entrepreneurial skills class. Maybe you want to teach some business, some finance. Maybe you want to talk about etiquettes of social media, or talk about how do you post, or maybe find out who doesn't have technology in their home. How do we make sure that students stay connected to the schools and to the communities? So there's different spaces. Nobody's asking permission. You just do it. I think, we look at the NAACP, when we look at Deltas, when we look at all of our top ladies of distinction, the National Congress of Black Women, we have a list of civic organizations that are out there that have agendas. If you want to just do your own. I have a friend, she wanted to give back to the homeless. She made up a toiletry bag and she gave them out at the train station, along with how you can find housing, or you need food, or what the local food bank was. But that was her give back. So, whatever your give back is, let that be it. And you get involved.
Yeah. And I feel like people who are apathetic and just don't, they don't care either way, there has to be something that you care about. If your issue is, I'm not making enough money, then why not go get behind the minimum wage increase?
Right.
Google that stuff. There's issues anything that you have going on in your life that you want to see a change, and you know that you're not alone in that. There's a way to find out what issue is tied to that and how to get behind that issue and figure out research it, figure out what the best position is on it. I mean, it could be just simple stuff. Like I remember they wanted to open something up by my house. I live in kind of a mixed use zoned kind of area where there's businesses, but there's also residential and all this. But my quality of life is being affected by the noise, by the traffic, and you want to continually put things in place that are going to, impair my quality of life. Like I just want a good night's sleep, So
Right.
I saw the sign they put out saying that they were going to do this redo this building or whatever, and what it was going to be. But they sent us a letter in the mail, and it was going to go up before the city council. And I think it was like maybe less than 10 days before it was going to go up. They were supposed to give more notice than that. That's number one. Number two, I emailed my city councilman immediately and laid out my concerns as to why I felt this was not good. I wanted to know what the hours of operation were going to be. I wanted to know how this was going to impact, I said, traffic in my area. I already have a hard time getting out, going, out onto the main street. Like, what is all this going to look like? And so if there's an issue, whether it's a pothole, in front of your
That's
house,
right.
whatever,
That's right.
there's ways to get that done and to get it done expeditiously. Like, I happen to know the process because I've worked in government, but I'm willing to help anybody who needs the
Mm-hmm.
information and needs the knowledge. They, no, they don't call me Miss Info for nothing. Like I just, people call me for the most random stuff. But yeah, I agree with you on the accountability piece. And if you feel like you can't do it, you just named a number of organizations that you could go to and say, hey, can you help me attack this issue, because you have a larger voice. So if it's going to the NAACP or Moms Demand Action or any civic engagement group that can say, yes, we'll help you with this issue, or this is already on our agenda.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's an awesome way to also get things going.
Right. And I think
Hold on. We heard that. That was the hubs. Tell him I said hello.
Keisha said hi, babe.
What's up, Keish?
What's going on, bruh? Yeah. Now let's move from public service to private citizen.
Yeah.
And you are a wife. You raised 4 boys. Talk about where the boys are now and how you're juggling life as a wife, and all that good stuff.
The boys are grown. The youngest, the 3-year-old, he'll be 16 in December. Everybody else is grown in their 20s. They're lovely young men right now. They're doing the best that they can.
So how is juggling, being a wife and doing what you do? Like,
so right now we're in COVID. This has lasted longer than I thought. Initially, I was very, very stressed. When I'm stressed out, I clean a lot, and I exercise a lot. I go to work. I'm a grant administrator. So this is the end of our budget season for a lot of our grants. We got a lot of COVID money in, so thank the Lord for that. But I go to work. I go to work every day and try to do the best I can, and come home is really work. Come home, jump on Zoom, and I could in normal days, I could easy do 3, maybe 4 meetings in a night. So to be home constantly, my husband loves it. It's good. But, you just try to redefine, what that is. And so I love the outdoors. It's getting cold now. So I'm trying to figure out my strategy to get back outside and do some walking, do some hiking, and trying to figure out, how do we plan out our 2021 year, because I don't think we're going to have a vaccine until maybe mid-June, July.
I have to ask the question that I asked all of my guests. I love this question. If we took away all of the titles, the position, the stature, and all those things that you do, who is Verlina Reynolds Jackson?
Oh, I am silly. I'm funny. I'm a jokester. I love to dance and I have no rhythm. I love to swim and I'm a rock at the bottom. I love the ocean. I love people. I tell people all the time, though, I am an introvert. But, in certain spaces, I can't help it. I might talk too much. I could be inappropriate at times. Something might slip. I'm bad with names, so bad with names. But I am great with faces. I'm a secret keeper. I'm a good friend. I love me in all shapes and sizes. I love me with store-bought hair or natural hair. I love me with makeup on, with makeup off. I love my big nose. I love my big glasses. I know who I am, and I just love all of me.
Well, I love all of you too. You are, I think you are all that and more. You have such a way of making people feel comfortable and at ease. You're always you, no matter what. And that's hard for people to do in spaces where you may be a public figure. There's one face you want to show to the world, and then because I know V. Okay. Assemblywoman, I don't know her like that, but I know V. But to me, they're one and the same. I can really feel that the way you treat people that are close to you, you have the same level of respect and affinity. Like people that don't know you can feel like they do know you. You have that natural, I guess what they call the common touch is what they call it. So
okay.
Yeah, I think you just have a natural ability to reach people, and maybe that's the social worker in you. Maybe that's, some of the things that you've done in throughout your career and your life. But yeah, you bring a lot to the table, and I'm just so proud of you for to see your growth and evolution from, us being, young in Delta to
Ooh,
now being seasoned Deltas,
yes.
being, starting out on a board or a commission, and now you're a deputy majority leader. Like that is some major growth and evolution. And I'm just so proud to say I know you and I love you.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much. I look for affirmations in everything. And I told you I went to church and I prayed about it. And I got a huge affirmation when I had won the election. I started filling out some paperwork. And I was like, I mean, I had won at this point, but you're still nervous about it, right? Because you don't know what to expect. And as I was filling out this paperwork, my address for my office downtown is 144. And my social security number starts with 144. And I was like, this is it. Okay, God. I don't need you to bust me over the head no more. You have affirmed that you are supposed to be here in this space at this time. And so own it, work it. And, I tell you, it is nothing but God that has gotten me here. And I am not tired. And, nor do I think about getting tired, fighting for people and advocating for people and human rights and civil rights. I just think that is, again, just who I am. And it is nothing but God that has gotten me to thus far.
Well, V, I wish you nothing but the best. You do amazing work, and I know your primary will be coming up this summer. So I know there's a lot of preparation, a lot of work that goes into that. So shout out to your team. Shout out to my girl Missy, who has really, I know she holds you down a lot.
Oh, yes.
So, or push you to work a lot, I'd say. But yeah, as we're getting ready to wrap up and bring this episode to a close, how can people begin to start supporting you? Because, it's one thing to just say, I support you, but it's another thing to put your dollars behind the candidates that really need it. So, and that
Right.
really deserve it. So how can people also begin to start maybe supporting your campaigns? Because we have to fund. That's the issue. We have to fund these campaigns. We have to really get out, put our dollars behind the people that we believe in that will represent us the way we need to be represented. So how can people begin to support you, in terms of giving donations, but also other ways that they can support?
Well, it's always great to support financially. I have an Act Blue account, and it's Verlina Reynolds Jackson for New Jersey Assembly. You can always donate in any nominal amount. You can also help by organizing. Let me know if you like to volunteer. We are in this COVID space, but we figured out how we can do some calls online, and we can make up a plan. Sometimes people only like to talk to those that they know versus individual strangers. And so we can develop a plan for you to make sure that you stay engaged so that you can help your family and your community stay engaged as well. We talked about early on the different issues. So what's your issue? What's your passion? And let's advocate together so that we can make sure that we get our people back to the polls again and stay involved collectively.
All right, V. Well, thank you so much for joining me. There are so many nuggets and jewels I think people can get out of this, particularly those who are interested in running for office. I cannot stress enough that it's just as simple as saying, you know what, I want to be the change that I want to see in the world. It's just that simple, and start making those small steps towards it. So, V, thank you again for being here, for sharing your wisdom, your knowledge, and your experience with us. I'm just looking forward to everything that you're going to do in the future. So you guys, if you're interested in ever running for office, I'm sure Verlina can definitely give you some tips on that. And I can share some of my experience in working in that space as well. And guys, please be sure we're only a few episodes away from the season finale. It is coming up very, very soon. Be sure to stay tuned for that. And you guys, thanks for listening. We'll see you next week. And until then, keep soaring. Thanks for listening to the Succeeding Over All Roadblocks Lifecast. Follow the show on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Soar Lifecast for more tips and motivation. You can also email questions to soarlifecast@gmail.com. Be sure to catch new episodes every week and leave a review of the show. Until then, keep soaring.